In what world would being a professional DJ, spinning records until the wee hours of the morning, intersect with being a respected leader at Microsoft? Not one that I would know of. And that's exactly why I had this conversation with Emily Griffin. She is a longtime professional DJ and artist who grew up in the music industry. And she's also an accomplished leader with Microsoft here in Seattle. She's graceful, she's intellectual, she's heart-centered, and she speaks the truth about who she is and works hard to stay connected with herself and balanced between these two worlds with their own gravitational pulls. So listen in because we talk about what it means to walk and talk your truth. Welcome to When Does It Get Good? I'm your host, Zovit Garbushin, and today we're talking to someone who I would categorize as one of the most interesting people I've ever met. Emily Griffin is not only brilliant and beautiful, she's a paradox, which is my favorite kind of person. By day, she's a senior leader at Microsoft, and by night, she's a professional DJ, spinning records and bringing people together through music. Now, I haven't yet been to one of her shows because let's be honest, I can't stay up past 9. But I do listen on SoundCloud and Instagram, and what she creates is magical. So, Emily, I'm so glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Zovig. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So I would love just for you to introduce yourself for a moment. You and I met through a coaches community about 1.5 years ago, but you've got this life that's very full. And like I said, it's one of the most interesting things I've ever known. So please tell us what you do by day and by night.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful we met when we did, and we've stayed connected through this kind of multi-dimensional expression of our lives and our careers and our relationships. By day, I do work at Microsoft. I'm director of programs for an organization within the company. I love being at the center of our AI strategy evolution and leading as a company, and really focusing on the employee experience and culture design. I came back to Microsoft as a culture designer, and it's been a really amazing journey of leadership and understanding the depth of humanity, of the needs of the people that I serve. You know, we talk a lot about customer experiences and serving customers and serving the whole world. And for me, my product is our employees. Like I'm focused on them and their needs. And that all really came out of my passion for people and relationships and culture in general. So I've been a DJ for as long as I can remember, really. But I came up in my career as a music artist and producer and community builder. So I really came into tech from that entertainment and music background. And I've managed to keep that balance, and being an artist absolutely is what keeps me in the corporate ecosystem. So it's definitely a fun opportunity to get to talk about both of those with you today.
Yeah. And I do want to talk about how you straddle both of those and be you in both of those places, because they seem, at first blush, at least naturally sort of at odds, like they don't fit, which is why I think you have such a great story. But before we get into that, I do want to just talk about the word culture. You call yourself a culture catalyst, a culture designer. When we're talking about culture, we're talking about it within the workplace, within this organization that is a global company, right? That is, I still can't get my head wrapped around how big and vast Microsoft as a company is, even just here in Seattle, forget about the rest of the world. So when you talk about culture, Emily, and being a culture designer, what is that? Can you explain more about what that actually means and how you lead that?
Yeah, when we look at culture, generally people talk about culture a million different ways.
Yeah.
And this is why I love to leverage the model that I learned from one of my mentors, Josh Levine. He wrote a great book called Great Mondays. And the model that he proposes for a holistic strategy of culture design includes purpose, values, behaviors, rituals, recognition, and cues. So as a holistic view on what culture is, ultimately what we want is we want to give people a great North Star. Microsoft has an incredible North Star. We're serving every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Big, bold, big, bold mission,
Yeah.
right? We can't do it today. It's a journey. And then there's values that drive how we work. And then of course, when you get deeper into the organization, what there is to be responsible for and to design for are those key behaviors like decision making, how to create both quantity of, like to create the output, but also the quality. So there's behaviors that get embedded into teams and how people work. And then there's ways of just being together as humans at work, getting to know each other, learning together, and then the recognition and how to, and like the both explicit and organic ways that you reward values aligned behaviors when someone is actually operating in a way that is in alignment with your vision for the team and the company.
Mhm.
And those cues, I'm really fascinated by the cues piece of it, because when I
Yeah.
think of cues, I think of our workspaces, and especially in this hybrid world, like what is that? Like what is that sense of place, and also the communication and expression of the day to day. And I'm, as an artist, I'm really fascinated by the possibilities of, each of these aspects of culture, but especially, coming from the dance music world, rituals for connection, building and connection throughout our core flow of work, and also the expression of, how we communicate, how we tell stories, how we are telling a story of success over time. Like those are the areas I'm really excited about.
So it sounds like what you do is you work to create an environment where people are being the most themselves they can be. And is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean that's my personal goal is making work as human as
As
possible.
human as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because and so that's interesting because I we both do, but coaching is what I do, and I know that people struggle a lot with bringing themselves to work and feel like they can't, or they have to modify or bring only a piece of themselves, or it's okay to do a little bit of this here and not there, and so it can be confusing. And I know that different organizations have different spoken and unspoken rules about who and how you can be, but it sounds like you have a vision for enabling people to bring whatever they want so that they can be who they are to do the best work they can.
Yeah, there's a lot of debunking of, bring your full self to
Yeah.
work, especially for folks at the margins. Like, look, they're not doing that for their own safety and
Yeah.
well-being. And I really support that. And I think there are some aspects to who we are. We're all multidimensional people with a lot of things going on in our relationships and our own personal growth. Like, some of that's nobody's business. But what I'm trying to get after, especially with my passion for working with innovation teams and creative teams, is like we want to have a safe space for people to not just be relating to each other as this like exchange of skills or just this kind of like transactional nature of work. Like, I do believe that there is like the human spirit that is in us, the the connection we each have to what moves our hearts for what's going on in the world and what's happening for humanity. Like, I think that's valuable to bring into the decision making that we're engaged in every day around how people are going to interact with technology.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
want that humanness in there, because we say
Yeah.
we want experiences for our customers that are trusted and coherent and connected. And I say we can't create that unless we're actually living that.
Hmm. So the other half of what you do, or not the other half, you're many things. You're also a mom, you're a wife, there's many parts of you, but the another big piece of your life is music and being a DJ. And I'm curious what that part of you, like what gets to come out when you're doing that might be different or might even enhance what you do at Microsoft. Like, share a little bit about the DJ side, or Griffin girl.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I really feel like my expression as an artist is my my true path of being fully me, fully like really like unleashed, like there's no boss. Like it's there's no boss, there's no like I get to say what works for me as an artist in terms of that expression. And when I think about like that moment of DJing, there's a lot of prep and of course years of honing my craft that has gone into it. But when I think about that moment when I am on the stage, I am orchestrating the rhythm of the entire room. Everyone's in that groove together. Everyone's got that spark of aliveness and is focused on me and focused on the sound. I feel so free. And what I feel like is so amazing as an experience there is I am able to be strong, powerful, and like I would say there's like this erotic
Yeah.
life force that I can be in this like unleashed way that I absolutely have to temper in the corporate environment. But it becomes this touchstone of aliveness, and it's become this practice of honing my own like embodied instincts and like trusting my gut and my ability to be agile and make decisions in the moment based on what's happening in the environment. Like all of that feels like Jedi training
Mm.
for going into the business world and having to be agile, be responsive, trust my gut, make a move that I know is where the room needs to go. Like it's been my like being a DJ is like my yeah, it's like my dojo. It's like the place where I get to like work out all of those skills, and then it's like I get to refine them and take them into a corporate environment and bring my like that strength of those moments. Like it kind of fuels my courage to be more outspoken and say the thing that needs to be said or try something different in that environment that needs that I believe like needs the artist and the influence of an artist and that that perspective because yeah it just does. I mean
Yeah.
the corporate environment needs some
Needs it.
life and vibrancy to it.
Yeah. Okay. So you said a word two times, and then you said a related word. You said unleashed twice, and then you said freedom. And I was like, I got the coach in me was like on that. So I want you to talk a little bit about the unleashed. And the reason I'm asking about this is because I find that, my journey has been a journey of learning to unlock and unleash parts of me that I have otherwise thought were not allowed or not okay, right?
Mhm.
My intensity, I was told I had a big mouth and I was all these too much, essentially, the story of too much. And I know that I work with leaders who who are tapping into like 30% of what they have to give. And there's a craving to give more and a craving to let go of more and say more and be more. And yet we hold ourselves back. Now, in some environments, we have to pick and choose how we be. Like we can't be fully unleashed all the time, everywhere we go. That's not, you can't live in a world like that, right? So we have to be discerning, but also feeling like at any moment I could turn on or turn off the parts of me that need to like infuse the aliveness, as you called it, or just bring in the color, the sparkle, the energy into the things that need it and not question it. And so I'm wondering how music and being an artist and I just imagine, I got chills when you described like being on the stage and moving the room. And I was like, I know when DJs do that, it's phenomenal, right? So have you always been able to just be like unleashed? Was it a journey for you? Is it continuing now?
It's absolutely continuing. I would say I feel way more I own it more now. I mean, I'm 30 years into being this, being this like kind of superhero on the stage. So I can, I can do the like flip into the suit, flip into the, the sparkle, the lashes, the whole, and
Yeah.
I'm there. Um, but it took time. And that's why I get that, there's people and, there's people in our lives and ourselves at some point, at points that are still evolving into owning that in different environments. But even in the music world, it took me time to own it because first of all, there was not a lot of women that I saw that were doing it originally. I I I saw it, I wanted it. I wanted it for myself, and I had that yes that was driving me forward even though there was a lot of no's in my environment. Major disrespect, like being told to not, threats, like early on, like I went through a lot of like no's basically and a lot of like counter pressure. Um and then even when I had had years of performing, touring, lifting up other artists, like, creating environments for other people to succeed as well. When I came back to DJing in my 40s, after taking a little break, I still had that, that voice almost of like, who the hell do you think you are? And you have nothing original to say. Like, what are you doing? And what I love about the practice of DJing is it always had me like in action so that I wasn't just like kind of like battling this demon and those voices cognitively in my head. Like I always had another step to take, another gig to do, and it always helped me like move right through those voices because I got that immediate feedback from people in the room and seeing how they were reacting to it. And then I knew that I was doing something right. And then I also, over time saw that the courage it took for me to show up was truly giving other people and especially other women like permission to do the same. And so it just became this like flywheel of goodness where it continued to give me more and more courage to keep going, even when now I'm almost 50. And there are sometimes those voices that are like, seriously, like, you're going to keep doing this. And are you really relevant anymore? And even though I see tons of guys in their 50s still at it, like, why am I questioning my the space that I'm taking up? So it's a constant dance of meeting those voices and those demons and just still like taking an action forward to hone my signal, so to speak.
Yeah. You said courage a couple times too. And not for nothing, but working in a company like Microsoft, I think takes some guts. That's not an easy place to get hired into. Some of the smartest people in the world work at that organization. And being in a position of leadership, it takes courage, right? For someone to step up and say, okay, I think that I have something good here. I think that I know enough at this point that I feel like I can lead people into a good place. And so I'm curious what parts of you are most utilized, the parts that you bring from the music and the music history into your work as a leader now. Like, how do you face the no's now? What parts of you that you got from being a DJ are you bringing in? Like what does it feel like when it happens? Do you know it when it's happening? What is that sort of transferable skill, if you will, right? Like, and see, quote old school resume language, your transferable skills. How do those show up for you when you're in your day to day on a Teams call or, talking with other leaders or people above you managing up? How does that show up for you?
Yeah. I i pride myself on being great with people in the moment. Like
You are.
I am so relationally oriented, and one of the main things that I bring courage to every day is prioritizing connection, because so much of what we do getting on a Teams call is about that transaction and that thing that we need to talk about and then make a decision on. But I always prioritize connection. Like I hop on calls 5 minutes early. I want to know how someone's doing. I have my natural, I guess, icebreaker questions. Like I can very quickly relate to someone as a human being, and that is my priority. And that actually does take courage in that environment. It really does, because there's a lot of pressure for performance and impact and moving things forward. And I am a stand that is happening from us being human first and relating to each other as like there's so much going on in the background for people. We know this, right? Relationships, health, a million different things. And like we were saying before, we don't need to put all of that on the table in those, like in every single situation and interaction, but having the empathy and like connection to our hearts when there's so much of a focus in the corporate world on just your head and your hands basically. And I want that coherence, and I want that sense of we're going to be related enough, because when we're going to be a team, we're going to be more invested in winning together if there is that sense of relatedness. And I think that that's just no question. Like, I really hold the sense of team really high. And it's not just a bunch of people being thrown together to go accomplish a thing. Like, there is a sense of a unified vision and a purpose. And we're going to do this together. And you're going to look left and right and know that these people are on the same page as you. And you have that same sense of, just like as in a DJ, you have that same sense of what a good vibe is, right? Like, you're creating a safe space so that the stinkers that show up, get kind of like get out, like you get them out. Like, you create this like sense of like, this is the space that we're going to create this great vibe in. And it's the way and the how that we're working that essentially is culture, right? We can be aligned on why we're doing something and what it's going to be, even in the DJ world. Like, it's a party, there's all these characters involved. It's, I have these constraints and this time, but it's how we're doing it and that sense of aliveness that we're bringing to those moments that is going to make it real. So yeah, and in terms of decision making, I think the courage that has been like honed in me to like show up against all odds, I find my way of landing my ideas or communicating my vision in a way that will land with the right audience. Like, I've been honed to really pay attention to my audience, right? Because as a DJ, they're right in front of me. Like, I can see if the song I picked is working or not. I transfer that into the corporate world as, I have this idea, I have this vision, I see that we need to make this change, and I'll have the conversations. I'm getting head nods, no action. I'm going to write the educational paper. Okay, I'm getting traction there. All right, I'm making the bold ask. Now I have an executive sponsor. Like, I really pay attention to where the response is coming, and I'll try different things. Just like I'll try different songs on a dance floor to get it to go into liftoff mode.
What you're talking about, Emily, is emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of, well, the framework of emotional intelligence that has been developed. Part of it is understanding who your audience is. I think that's just good people skills, is knowing
Mm-hmm.
who you're talking to and what they need,
Mm-hmm.
and paying attention to the room, what they're saying, but also what they're not saying.
Yes.
I've never been a DJ, but I did for a time. I do a lot of training, in front of groups, and I taught yoga for a few years as well. And when you have a room of 40 or 50 people in front of you who are waiting for your cues,
Mm-hmm.
and you say a thing and then nobody moves, you realize, oh, it's not them, it's me. I need to change what I just said because they didn't get what I said. It didn't land with them in the way it needed to land. And so being able to be fluid, and that's agility. That's a great deal of presence is what you're talking about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
being in the moment with them, not here's my agenda, here's what I think we're supposed to do, here's what I want to do. You're trying to create buy-in. That's what you're trying to create buy-in, right? And
Yes.
and say what needs to be said in a way that they need to hear it.
Yeah. And there's a sense of what you're talking about as well, which is improvisation,
Yes.
right? Which is key to great jazz, great dance music, a great speaker, a great facilitator. Is you could have your plan and you still want to be that tuned in and present that you're understanding where you need to move the room at any point. And I can't think of like really it's such a bridge from dance music to technology, like the amount of fast-paced change, like we need to build that awareness so we can be more agile and responsive and improv in the moment, because there's there's a ton of decisions that need to be made. And if we're making those decisions from this kind of like vacuum of our own self-preservation, it's not going to land.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to take a kind of a soft right. I'm curious how over the years, because the way that you're talking and the way that you think has a lot of it seems to me that you've learned to let go of things, like to be agile and to change plan. That means that we have to be willing to let go of stuff, not hold on to it, not make it about us. And all of that says to me like a very high level of self-awareness and vulnerability and emotional intelligence. A person does not get to that point just by accident. And so I'm curious, what have you done over the years for yourself, Emily, to understand yourself, explore yourself, reflect? Like, what are the tools you've used? What have been those things for you that have gotten you to where you are now, which from my perspective is quite wise?
Thank you. I have done so much work to hone in my own awareness and embodied intelligence. I would say right out of college, I I was really attracted to landmark education. So I
Mhm.
did, I consider that a coaching mechanism. And definitely that was at a point in my life where I knew that I wanted an experience. I wanted to be fulfilled in my career, as an example. And I heard so much counter, narrative around what I'd have to go through to actually finally get to that point. And I Landmark was so helpful for me early on because it helped me realize that because I could say something and say something was possible, that it actually was possible, and that I had that power to say, I'm going to live a fully self-expressed life and develop a global community like right out of college. And it sounded crazy coming out of my mouth, but I knew that because I could say it, it was possible. And then it was like I immediately tuned myself to opportunities and knew where they, knew when certain opportunities or people came my way, like I could feel that yes, because it was aligned to that thing that I said that I wanted and how I wanted to feel. And I would say I stayed involved in, like, I would say coaching relationships for many, many years. One way that I balanced that out, because I would say it was very like cognitively heavy, I really wanted to balance that out with more embodied awareness. So I did study yoga and meditation for many years as well, as a way to balance out and really hone the instinct part of it that wasn't just cognitive. Like I knew I needed to connect that for some reason. And I really think it's important to have, yes, like a great therapist or, a great coach. Like I think it's important to have people in our lives, not our friends. Like it's great to have friends that are values aligned and that could hold up that mirror and give you the real talk, right? Like I want people like that in my life. But I think that there's something really important about having a resource that you pay for, that it's like their job to pour into you. And it's really not, it's like they're not your friend. It's their profession to help you like truly objectively see what's going on. And I've dealt with a lot of anxiety. I've dealt with a lot of um, trauma in my relationships. So I've had a lot to face over the years. And I would say even me coming back as a DJ at 40 was like my Phoenix rising moment out of some really, really tough times in my relationships. And I needed that, like I think we need those like trials by fire to really shape our essence and like what's really like who we really are. And then of course those moments where we really, really need it, it's like where all that Jedi training comes into play. Like all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, I'm going to use these distinctions now, and actually kind of like see myself clearly in this like muddy situation so that I could, that I can rise up. So I just, I think if I didn't have the coaches and support I had, around me over these last number of years, like I would be a pile of mush on the ground. Like I think it's really important to have people that you have in your life that are, yes, the coaches and therapists that you're paying for, but also even the really close friends that are doing their own work so that you're just those reflections around you are like clean, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Fellow landmark person as well, went through their whole program, even was a coach for them as well. And man, I believe it is still around,
Mhm.
and that program will kick you in the ass, but will show you a lot about who you are. So that is not the nice type of self-reflective, self-awareness, self-discovery work, but really, really effective. And it sounds like you and I have had some parallel experiences for what we've studied, how we've explored ourselves. And I love that you talk about not just the cognitive part, the what I think and maybe the actions that I take, but also the embodied experience. How do I actually feel? Does my body believe this courage, this confidence that I say that I have? Does this do I physiologically, physically, energetically align with the choice that I just made? What is my body telling me
Yeah.
about what I just did, what I just said? So I love that you're bringing both of those parts into your work. And I know that, like me, you believe that I use the word work lightly because I don't have another word. Let's call it attention
Mm,
to ourselves is a never ending process. I think there's always something to attend to. And that is the ultimate self-care, is attending to ourselves, right? It's mental fitness, it's emotional fitness, and it takes consistent work and attention.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I burned out from DJing and the music world. I burned out from tech. Like I'm on the other side of rising up from that hard learning and like redefining what success is for me is making the impact and staying healthy. Like it's part of what drives me and why I care about the connection piece and the being human piece at work, because especially now in this, even this last couple of years, like isolation, loneliness, the pace of change, the negative information environment we're in, like this is a lot. It's a lot to deal with. Like we have to tend to ourselves. And I think it's important to talk about, those nuances of what you're bringing to the workspace, because that leads you to a conversation about boundaries, because
Yeah.
you need the boundaries you need the boundaries, otherwise you will burn out.
Yeah. Um, well, I think this is a good place for us to pause. I want to thank you so much for sharing about what you do and for being who you are. I'm really happy to call you a friend and a peer and to learn from you. Emily, if people want to find out more about you in any part of your life, where would you direct them?
Find me on LinkedIn, Emily Griffin. I'm also on Instagram as Emily Griffin Girl with two R's in there. And yeah,
Okay.
I'm out there. You can
Okay.
find me in my music.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Zovig. You're such a gift.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
for the time today
My
and
pleasure.
for the great questions.
Absolutely. All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Take good care of yourselves. Lots of love and big energy, and see you next time.